Hello, YouTube world. My name is Scott, and I'm a hippie, and I'm a tinkerer, and I've been tinkering with this thing here, and I've now had two friends who have insisted that I make a video about this to show the how and the what and the why of it. And if you're looking at this and you're thinking, hey, that's a boombox, good call. This is an 80s era boombox that I bought on eBay, and unlike a lot of the videos that you find on YouTube where the grand idea is just to add Bluetooth or something really fundamental, I had a bit more ambitious idea in mind, and I thought what I would do is kill two birds with one stone by showing it to you, giving you a parts list, kind of covering the gotchas and the things that I found that are like, as well as getting those friends of mine off my back. So, without further ado, let me pivot the camera around here so you can see it and not this, and I will tell you all about it and see if you have any interest. Oh, and as a supplemental point, I'm not a professional YouTuber. You can tell by my professionally clipped on microphone here, as well as 1,000 other reasons. If I am ham-handed in making this video, I apologize in advance, but you'll see some shaky camera angles, and just bear with me. Thanks. Okay, so what do I have here? Well, this is circa 1982 or 3, I'm guessing. Boombox made by Magnavox, or at least let me spill the beans a little differently on that. It is marketed as a Magnavox 506. It is also sold, I believe, in Europe and elsewhere as a Philips 509. And it turns out it was made by a company called LOEWE, Lowe, something like that. And I found that out only because I found the service manual for it, which was helpful in a few ways that I'll touch on later. So what on earth have I done to it? What is this that you're looking at? Well, first thing I did was I buzzed out the cassette deck mechanism in its entirety. I just took it lock, stock, and barrel out. And I debranded it. It used to say Magnavox here along the bottom, and I just kind of anonymized it a little bit. And inside I have, so in the place of the cassette, I wanted to have something a bit more ambitious than just Bluetooth. I know there are a lot of videos on YouTube where people are making old electronics and audio and hi-fi gear sort of newer by adding Bluetooth, and I guess I just felt like I wanted a bit more out of this. So what I did was I put a Raspberry Pi with Volumio on it inside, and Raspberry Pi is they call it an SBC, a system on a board computing. It's a little tiny credit card sized computer. This is a touchscreen. It's a 5 or so inch. And if I don't touch it every so often during this video, it'll go blank. That's just, timeout settings I haven't gotten around to changing. And I also know that YouTube is very persnickety about not having audio that they recognize commercially. So I'm going to be very careful not to play very much of the audio that will get me in trouble. So Boombox, check. Raspberry Pi, check. Volumio, what is Volumio? It is an operating system that you can load on Raspberry Pi. And it does, among other things, Bluetooth would be because of the hardware, but it'll also do AirPlay. You can stream music either from internal storage or from internet radio, or as you may have noticed here on the front, I took this is where the tape counter and the tape counter reset button used to be. And I have put a female USB so you could stick a thumb drive in here if you had a bunch of MP3s or FLACs or whatever, and play them through here as well. And the reset button is now the power button for the Pi. Those are powered by two separate voltages, two separate systems. I'll explain that in the fullness of time. And then up top, where I had, a space for play, record, fast forward, rewind, blah, 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 I ended up with a hole. And into that hole, I wanted to put something fun. So I searched around for the little, the VU meters where the needle would kind of go, back and forth. And I couldn't find any that were small enough to fit that space. So I ended up, let me pivot the camera. I ended up finding this guy on AliExpress, and it is, I put it in I 3D printed this little adapter just I don't know if I can show you the holes on this without, blowing the secret too much, but that's the space that it sits in, and put the screen back on here. And instead of hooking it up to the line feed so that it responds to the music that's playing, there's a microphone on there, and you can see it's responding to my voice, but this gives you an idea of what it looks like, and you can actually change. Excuse me, I'm not left-handed. I warned you about the camera angles. There are some buttons on top where you can change it from. Where's the hole? Where's the button? There. Oh no, that's the date and time. Okay. Other side. It must be this side that controls the type of display that you get. So you can get stereo, right, left, and but it's not going to really discriminate between right and left per se. There are, I think, a dozen or 14 of these different. What have I done? There we go. 11 could be dials, 12 could be bars. If you like the floating with the peaks, it's got, oh, look at that. Well, I'll come back to that. If I'm hitting the wrong buttons because I can't see what I'm doing. But it's a nice VU meter for the space, and it runs off of the same voltage as the Raspberry Pi. So I put those two together, and I put it all together, and there's a story to tell about it. And I'm going to situate my camera better, and I'll come back to you. Okay, I fought the tripod, and I think I won. There's one other thing I forgot to mention about the top part, and that is there's a buck converter, a DC to DC voltage converter in line with that, because I'm running it off of USB, but it only needs 3.7 volts. So when I get into talking about how I power the Pi, just remember that this guy requires even less. So in his case, it's a USB with a buck converter in line. I've changed the song just in case you want to see evidence of it playing. I'll do like a quick. How long can I get away with before YouTube gripes? Is that too short? Too fast? I don't know. It does play, and I can switch other tracks if I wanted to play something. Some monkeys. Okay. I really don't want to get in trouble with those at the recording industry, but in any event, this is it up and running, and I could, as I said before, I could plug in a thumb drive if I had stuff. I could do AirPlay or Bluetooth if I want to take this someplace and share it. It is fully portable. I haven't done anything that would require that it stay tethered, so I'll cover that as well. And so I should also mention that all the regular function, the AM/FM selector is here. The expanded stereo and mono function switch is here. And the way that this is put together, the signal from the Pi goes through the amplifier that was just already in here from before. So the expanded and the stereo and the mono and all that still work for everything, which is kind of a cool little perk. This is the sleep radio, and it said tape, but I've kind of scratched the letters to make it say Pi a little bit, or off. And that's a gotcha that I'll touch on in a spell. Volume, tone control, balance, these are all, they were in desperate need of deoxidizing. And this is the tuner for the radio, and the antenna I've got way the hell up here. The tuner knob, the reason it's still kind of floating up here is it looks like at some point in life it took a tumble and it's kind of not level. And I thought what I might be able to do is to put it in front of a hairdryer or something and kind of soften it up and see if I could re-level it before I committed to cramming it back down on there. So if you're wondering what that's about. Now, I want to pivot this and I want to turn it so that I can show you the back. So bear with me. Okay, welcome to the backside. It is open still, and I do have the power cord. I could run it off the power if I wanted to, but this represented an interesting dilemma. It's made to hold 6 D-cell batteries, and while I have them and while they work, they're not rechargeable and they're a great big pain in the butt. They're heavy, and I didn't want to do it that way. So what I did was I got some of these are 26 650, not the 18 650s. These are 5,000 milliamp hour each, 3.7 volt if I remember correctly. So I get my 9 volts by way of 3 of these, which fits into the space, and then I can put the door on and deal with it that way. And I thought that that was a more graceful solution to having, excuse me, to having to fight D-size batteries. There's one other thing hiding in here that I want to show you. I haven't figured out quite where I want to put the finished install of this guy, but if you can see this, this is a panel mount USB-C plug. So I drill a hole someplace and I can fit this guy in it. At the moment, he's just tucked in behind the battery stuff. What that's for is, well, bear in mind I'm going to skip to it, but there's a battery inside that I have to show you as well. While we're on the back, there are 2 other things I had to deal with. One was the antenna holder. The clip was busted in such a way that I couldn't tell what it looked like when it was new and real, and the manuals didn't really show it in enough visual clarity to. So I 3D printed one of these, and I've noticed the only thing I don't like about it is I might need to elevate this a bit because the antenna seems to go downhill now. If you come at it proper level, this is a little higher than this, and so 3D printing for the win, but I think I might want to revise that one more time and have it gain a little height. And then this is a switch I installed that is very important, and I'll turn it off. You can hear the speaker made a little kind of a pop sound there, and back on. The issue was when I was playing the Raspberry Pi, there was nothing that told the rest of the device to be powered on. Normally, if you remember these from the 80s, you'll remember that the setting was like AM, FM, tape, I'm sorry, AM or FM or auxiliary or something or another, whatever your boombox offered. And then tape was off. Tape was the powered off position, so that if you didn't hit play or pause or record or anything, it wasn't using any power. Consequently, it also wasn't amplifying. So there was a bit of a burden there to figure out exactly how I wanted to deal with that. And I'll show you what that was about. Okay, here we have my box of spare parts for this guy. This is the old print head. And as you can tell, I labeled everything so that I could tell where the hell it was coming from. This is the read or the erase head, so I didn't really need that. This is the old cassette door, full stop, long life heads. Oh boy. Here is I cut this assembly out of the inside. These are the play, pause, record, fast forward. I don't know if you can see in this gap. Let's see if I can zoom in on that guy. Do you see those 2 silvery wires? One's kind of bent at the tip and the other is straight. If I play, which one's play? No, that's record. Okay, play. And stop. Yeah, red is this pinkish one, I think, is play. You'll notice how those 2 make contact. That is the switch with the brown and the 2-tone, the green and brown. That tells the amplifier to turn on. That's the switch I was looking for. So this functionality of that little mechanical, wire being pushed into another wire was the holdup. And what I ended up doing was going into the insides of this guy, finding those 2 wires and running them to this switch I installed so that I could still have a manual on-off power kind of a situation for the boombox. All right, so everything is now put away. I have a spare power cord if I need it, but the batteries are charged, so I should be good for a while. I'm going to see if I can pivot this in such a way that you can see. There's the connector wire for the antenna is one of the shorter ones, and so, oh, let me turn this off because I'm liable to touch something in there. Okay. How's that view? Is that going to get us anywhere for the moment? Hopefully it will. On this side, I have a UPS for the Raspberry Pi. Now, the Raspberry Pi, I should focus on better lighting, shouldn't I? All right, one camera pivot later, I think we're in business. So these, I need a pointer stick here, something. Here's my pen. These 2 boards are the main boards of the boombox. This one on the near side would be the tuner, and it has the, mechanisms for, uh, there's a, coil wound around an iron bar. It's a crappy tuner. I mean, let's not mince words. The 80s were not great for making an AM FM tuner that could really lock on, but be that as it may, it's still there. This is the amplifier side, and then in front of it, the tape mechanism, the assembly was behind all of this. And when I buzzed it out, I had a fair amount of space. I'm not sure how I'm going to show it to you, but I'll figure something out. In the meantime, I have this UPS for the Raspberry Pi. Now, the battery for it is hanging out behind there. I don't know if you can read it on camera. 3.7 volt, 10,000 milliamp hour. Should give me a fair runtime on the Pi, as well as on the VU meter that's on the top. Now, the documentation for says RPI UPS pack standard V3P. I will put links in the description with just Amazon links. They're not affiliate links. I'm not a pro. This is not a pro. Duh. You can tell. This is me trying to help you find your way if you want to do the same project. The documentation on this kind of stank, to be honest. What I found through fiddling was the power. I wanted to have a remote power button, and this will tell me my state of charge, but doesn't really help me if I'm not, in the device. I may mount this in such a way that I, cut a little window so I can see that from the outside. I'll deal with that, as I'm doing the finishing installation steps. What I cared about was a way to turn this guy on and off from my switch over, or on the front rather, where it used to say tape reset. Now it's off. You can see the lights went off. There's a way to do it, and it's not necessarily obvious, but it has to do with this plug on the end and the last two pins. So if we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, it's the 3 and 4 pin. When you shunt them, power goes on. So little helpful tip from the hippie, Scott the hippie here, and it'll make sense for you. Hopefully, if you find yourself with one of those trying to figure out how to run a power to it, that's the way. Okay. I should also mention, while I'm thinking of it, that in the backside corner there is the original AC transformer, and I didn't really have a need to change any of that. The power from the battery, the 26650 batteries in this area, come up through a little hole in the corner. I got rid of the springs that would hold the D-cell batteries in place, and that liberated a little bit of space. But it doesn't really have any relationship to the AC power adapter, so I just left it alone. So if I were to plug this in right now on the AC plug, it'd still work. Well, I'd have to, power on the Pi again if I wanted to use that instead of the radio. But you get the idea. It's still there. I didn't have to fool with it, and it's not bothering anything as near as I can tell. One of the things that I learned that was a gotcha, as we're going to go along here, you can see this wire. And there's another one that comes in from the bottom here, and these are the right and left. So I'm telling the story in choppy bits, and I apologize for that. The Raspberry Pi is sort of a layer cake. On the front layer, where you can see, there's a screen. And then behind that screen is the Raspberry Pi, and on top of the Raspberry Pi is something called a hat. It's a Well, it's a DAC. It's a digital analog converter, and what it does is it takes the sound that's on the Raspberry Pi and allows me to take it out to RCA jacks. And I get a right and a left, and that's great. That's all I really needed out of it. I didn't want to use the headphone jack and splice into that. I wanted something a little bit higher end, so I'm giving this thing the best sound quality I can. The first iteration of this that I did, I had, it was a cheapie. I was just doing a quick check in my desk drawers to see if I had one I could show you. I sacrificed a mini phono. I'll put a picture up if I can find one on the video. A mini phono to dual RCA. That is, usually one is white, one is red. and the other one looks like a headphone jack. And the grand idea was I didn't want to sacrifice, you know, a good cable for something this mundane. That was a big mistake, and I'll tell you why. This cable, I don't know if you can tell. Let me see if I can get in there up close and personal on it. It's got a red and a white line inside a metal foil braid, and the metal foil is just kind of stripped back and pulled back there. It made a world of difference in a bad way for sound quality. When I first had that plugged in, the issue was snap, crackle, and pop were everywhere. It just sounded like a rocket was launching near my, and I couldn't figure it out. It turns out that those cheap cables, they don't use a red and a white in the middle wrapped with a braid to give it RF shielding. They put one wire in the middle and they use the RF shielding as the second. It's a carrier signal. So your ground, let's say, would be the braiding, and your positive would be the center core. Well, I mean, it only acts like an antenna and picks up everything. It was a disaster. So I ended up having to get better grade cables just so that I could sacrifice them. So this was a decent cable, RCA connector, and I just cut it, and the jacketing makes a world of difference. So if you run into trouble where you're putting one of these together and it sounds like absolute ass, that would be why, almost certainly, because you've put an antenna someplace right next to the circuit board and it's doing what antennas do. Okay. All right, here we are going handheld to airborne. I wanted to be able to try to give you a better view of what's inside this guy. And the first things first, this little doobie, my VU meter that's in the 3D printed adapter, you can see this. For those of you in the know, this is a BME 280 sensor, a backup battery, and this is the connector, the white thing that's under my thumb, is the connector for the OLED screen in front. This wheel, it looks like a volume wheel, is actually a sensitivity control. There's USB-C on the side if you wanted to power it. You can tell where I found the power lead inputs from the battery that was there. It came with a little tiny lithium-ion battery, and I've just swapped it out. The other side has the headphone jack in and out. So if you wanted to not use the microphone that's in here and just have it rely on the sound that's playing, it's simply a matter of feeding the signal in there. Your choice. It's available to you. This is the buck converter I have, wrapped up in there so that it doesn't touch anything. But what I really wanted to show you, and get these guys out of the way. Stay. There we go. Is how about the light? The Raspberry Pi that lives inside this guy. I thought this might be true. Well, hopefully this works out well on camera. The screen in front is the first layer. The Pi exists in the middle, and you can see on this side there's a USB plug. It's oriented that way. And then the hat that sits on top, I'm getting the shadow. See, this is why you want to have a professional do these things and not some Yahoo. These are the cables. I put 90-degree elbows. These are just brass RCA elbows because I didn't want them poking straight up. But you can see, where the hell's my pointer pen? You can see down in here, that hole is a headphone jack if you'd rather use those. So this is left and right, and rather than have them come directly up toward the camera, I wanted them to go off to the sides so that I would then have room to, be able to fit something in here in the way of a VU meter. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so I've got everything sort of put back together so that I can show you kind of what the boot sequence is like for this guy, because you might be thinking Raspberry Pis are I don't know, more powerful or less powerful than you think they are. Everything is turned off right now. I'm not going to bother with the switch on the back for the amplifier. I'll leave that off to save the battery. But this is me turning on. I don't want to push the too hard because the whole thing will go back and I don't have it all put together yet. So I've just powered it on, and the VU meter on the top springs to life pretty quickly. Let me see if I can show you. Blah, blah, blah. You can see it's responding to me. Okay. And then we wait because this is a Raspberry Pi 4, 4 gigahertz, I'm sorry, 4 gigabytes, and it is booting up Volumio. So it takes a moment, and well, we'll just wait it down. I guess I could fast forward if I had the technical skills to know how to do that on video editing. Um, it does take, probably 30 seconds, 40 maybe, something along those lines to get to the point where it's ready to do something. And, if you missed the splash screen, you might think it was off. You might be thinking, well, now what the hell is it doing? There's genuinely nothing on this screen. But I could take this opportunity, I suppose, to tell you about how I set the screen in here. This screen was just a whisker too big to clear these dimensions. In other words, it would have been kind of proud of the front of this material, which well, now it's booted up and ready to go. You can see. So I had to put it behind, and then that left a pretty good sized gap here and some awkward ones on the side. And I was thinking about this for the longest time. I had the whole thing apart because I was making sure that this module comes off. I took it off to sand off the little Magnavox or whatever the hell it said. And I was making sure the headphones still work, and they do. This is still a live jack. But the gaps were pretty significant, and also these touchscreens, the framing around them is not necessarily uniform, so you can't just center based upon the edges of the screen. You need to actually center relative to the image. And so let me bring you up close and personal on that and tell you can assess how well I did. The image bleeds under the edge of that trim just a little bit. I mean, it's maybe a millimeter, maybe something along those lines. So what did I do? Well, I found I was using for a different project some C-channel rubber. What do you call that stuff? It's like lining or edging. I'll show you a quick glimpse of what I was doing. I have among the things I do over here is 3D printing, and I had this cabinet beside me here that I wanted to put a window in. You can see that it was just, how the hell else do I know? So I cut the plexiglass, I cut the hole, I cut the plexiglass, and then I had this C-shaped rubber grommet material that I was left over, lots of it, in fact. What did I? No, cancel. I didn't want to do anything. And so I found that I could take an X-Acto knife and cut it, kind of getting the contours just so, and it was adhesive on the back, so it really stays nicely, and it gives a nice flush. I wouldn't call it waterproof. I don't think any of this is waterproof, but if you splashed a drink in this direction, I bet it would be okay. Unless you really threw a whole, stein of beer at it or something, it would probably still be all right because this seam is pretty good in contact with the screen. So there are ways to figure out how to fill the gaps, and it wasn't too terrible. I suppose while I'm thinking of it, I should show you the shutdown sequence if you want to be graceful and not just throw the power. Tapping that little hamburger looking icon in the upper left, I can come down here, and hit power and tell it to power off or restart. And then, hey presto, I'm off. Okay, I went to the jiggle cam here. We're hand holding for the moment. I wanted to show you, though the VU and the Pi are off, the UPS is not off. You can still see it in there running until I come over here to the power button in the front, and now it's off. So don't want to gloss over that detail because you could drain your battery doing nothing. More handy cam here. I wanted to show you right now. This is the setup because I haven't figured out how or where I want to mount this USB-C port, but this is the charge plug. I've got it powered up, and now I'm charging that UPS, and you can tell that the red light flashes and the status indicator is showing about 75% charge. So I may or may not poke a hole for those LEDs to become visible from the backside. That's a vent. I probably could justify it. I just haven't made a commitment yet. So that's on my to-do list, but I don't think it's consequential for the storytelling of this so far. Okay, now that I've got this all situated and can charge up for a bit. By the way, the 26 650 batteries, I can just take them out of this holder and go charge them in a regular, cradle type charger that I keep nearby. And I have spares of these, so like I could swap out to charged ones in the event that I was playing and they ran out. But that brings me to sort of the conclusion, the wrap up. What remains to be done on this, because it's nearly finished, and I wanted to make this video before I had it all, dressed up, put away, and where I'd have to then rip it apart to show you how I had done it. I'm going to use silicon sealer to fix the VU meter frame down. I don't want to necessarily hot glue it or something like that. I want to have it be a reasonably weatherproof, reasonably, removable and refixable if necessary. So the VU meter needs to be glued in place. I've got the knob here that's I mentioned from before that needs to be straightened out. The 26 650 battery bar, I thought I might be able to, I put some double-sided tape on. I thought I might be able to stick it on the back of the door kind of like that and just have it be a, pivot in and out. I'm not sure the clearances are going to allow me to do that. I'm going to play with that a bit more. It may just sit inside. And if that's the case, then so be it. I'm not gonna worry because the batteries come out. They can be swapped. The USB-C charger for the UPS, I might just leave it. I might just leave it like this, where I have to pop the door open and slide it out. I haven't decided. I kind of don't necessarily want to get in to drilling extra holes, here. I have the space. I think if you saw the inside of here, I could probably justify it, but I don't know. I don't like drilling holes where I don't have to. What else do I need to do? Well, I need to do a runtime assessment. I need to figure out how long both of these will operate independently and then, kind of work out what is my mean time to, party over. Um, Let me get this tucked away and then I'll break out what the costs were, because I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, well, how much did this lunatic spend on? Well, he probably spent a bit more than he should have, but I'll bring it to your attention and you can make the decision if I'm clinically insane or not. Okay, let's get down to brass tacks. What the damages? The Magnavox, or Philips, or Lowe, or however you want to call this guy, I bought on eBay, and it was somebody who had one of those make an offer or make me an offer, and so I offered him $50 with shipping. It came out to about $75. I thought that was pretty reasonable, and I hope they approve of what I did. Raspberry Pi, these are getting to be tricky these days. I think they are still available for about $70. The pricing is going a little bit crazy because all of our AI overlords have bought up every last shred of RAM in the world. So because these have RAM, they're affected as well. $70 I think is fair as of I'm recording this end of December, beginning of January 2026. InnoMaker makes the hi-fi hat that sits on top of the Raspberry Pi and gives me my RCA right and left outputs with a DAC, $30. Maker Focus is the maker of the UPS battery. That includes the 10,000 milliamp hour 3.7 volt battery in your now $36. I paid $30. Look at me, the bargain hunter. Power supply. I've got piles of these. You may as well. One's as good as another as far as I'm concerned, as long as they give you 5 volts and about 3.5 amps or so. There's a link to one that's $10 if you need one. I have several of them. I can say that this particular one is serviceable. The 5-inch touchscreen, this mamma jamma here. There's also a 7. If you find yourself with one of those great big boom boxes, feel free to run for them. Go for it. They can be big. This is the 5-inch, and this one is $30. Now it's $35. The RCA elbows that do the business of taking the right angle into account so that I can fit my VU meter. Those are $5 a pair. The USB extension cord is the one that comes from the Maker Focus USB and goes out to the back, where I was telling you I didn't particularly want to drill an extra hole, but I may still do. That's, no, wait a minute, I'm mixing these up. This is this one. This is the USB extension for the front that I stuck in the counter opening. Okay, let me get my stuff together here. This guy is the $5 USB extension. The RCA cable that I had to sacrifice because I told you the one I was using was garbage was $14. The panel mount is the one I'm thinking of. That's the one that's in the back that comes from the Innomaker. That's a USB to USB-A, or USB-C to USB-A, as I recall. Um, Micro SD card. You probably have heaps of these around. I mean, Volumio recommends 8 gigs. I would say, probably don't go under 32, 16 in a pinch, but also don't cut corners on the speed because, as you saw, this thing is nothing too fast as it stands, and a slow speed, you're going to make it worse. And then this guy on top here, oh, you can't see where I'm pointing. This guy is what I'm calling the OLED VU thingy because it does date and time and temperature, and it has the 12 or whatever it is different VU settings. It does all kinds of things. It's about $60 delivered from AliExpress. Um, I don't know what else to call that thing. You may find it comes in a rectangular plastic box that is much thicker than this. So you may want to think about, your 3D printing options as you consider it. But that is the grand total. So that puts me at $353 for this guy. Sorry about the jump cut. Had a little trouble with the tripod right in front of me. For this guy, for this glorious, let me do my Vanna White for you. This wonderful, high-tech, fantastic, whatchamacallit. If you want to do this on your own, I'm hesitant to say, ask me if you run into trouble because I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm an old hippie who does this sort of thing goofing off. I wasn't planning on making this video. I wasn't planning on being on YouTube. I'm not using any affiliate links. The links that I post are just links. I'm not going to monetize this. If you think I should, if you think there's more to it than this kind of thing, or if you think the next thing I do, which is probably going to be in the realm of 3D printing or hi-fi or just gizmos and gadgets, if you've seen stuff in the background and you're like, what the hell is that? And you think I ought to make more of these videos, well, I'll make more. I really don't see myself as the YouTuber influencer type, to be honest with you. This is just something that I was doing because I wanted to do it. And if you want to do something like this, more power to you. I think it's a fantastic way to keep these boom boxes around and useful. And it's not going to win any sound awards. The sound from the 80s was, but it's not bad. And there's a nostalgia kick. If you're an old fart like me with gray in your beard and your hair, you remember this stuff. And if you're otherwise interested in any of this other background hoopty I have around here, let me know. Give me a sense. Should I do this? I don't think I really want to. I'm kind of lazy, to be truthful. I don't want to meet deadlines. I don't want to have to be clever all the time on command, and I don't want to. I know I'm going to enable comments, and people are going to tell me some of the daftest stuff I've ever heard in my life. Knock yourselves out. I'm not doing this for anything other than to be helpful. I hope you like it. I hope you get a kick out of this. I hope the sensors don't knock me out of here. And I think that's about it. So happy making, and, whatever this is, enjoy it. Postscript, I almost forgot to tell you, I got a second one of these little VU deals so you can see better what the thing is all about. I believe this is to change the, nope, that's the, I want to see how many different things there are you can do with this guy. This is the size of the box, by the way, that these things come in. USB-C on this side, and clearly this was green. Color choices, you can get the yellow, green. The one that you saw me using was white. I think there's a red and a blue, I'm not mistaken. But so color choices are available, and there are a number of different settings that this guy will do. There's kind of a sort of a retro throwback. The bars, there are a few different takes on the peaks here with the sound where it, marks the peak and it falls. You could do more blocky. I hope this is coming through on camera. I mean, I'm not a YouTube guy, right? This is a phone, and it's gonna maybe not have the highest video quality. All of these are available to you. I didn't want to make it sound like it was kind of like you had to do it the way I'm doing it. Anyway, enjoy. This is the $60 What's It from China.